Everyone, welcome back to the balance sheet. I'm Billy. This is my co-host Raj. Uh, Exciting episode today. We have another Mercedes match to go over as she had a banger on AEW Dynamite with Billie Starkz. We are going to carve out some time to give props to timeless Toni Storm, and Raj has a comparison that you won't want to miss. And then it's Mania season, guys. We've got a lot to talk about as it relates to the WWE. Who's going to be on the card? Will a women's match main event? And frankly, are we going to be able to see all of the top women in WWE get onto the card? It's looking a little bit tight at this point. Let's start with Mercedes. I'll kick it to you, Raj. Did you watch the match? Obviously, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, I watched the match on tape delay. I did not watch it live like everybody else seemed to. And I put away my phone. Didn't I mean, I knew who was going to win, so it's not like it was a spoiler alert. But I wanted to enjoy the match and just really pay attention to more. I was actually scouting Billie Starkz than Mercedes, because I've seen, every Mercedes match, but I've always heard how great Billie Starkz is as kind of a type of Roxanne prodigy, like, very
Yeah,
young, 19 years old, but really good in the ring, really smooth. Seen a couple of her ROH matches, but this is the big time. I mean, Mercedes is, for most in the industry right now, the pinnacle to wrestle in terms of seeing how good you are in the ring. She's kind of the measuring stick. So I watched the match, and I have to say, I was so impressed with both women.
yeah,
I thought that it was a really good story they told in the ring. Mercedes is the big bad bully, the undefeated bully. She's the punk kid, almost to the point where she was literally at autograph signings, getting pictures with her. She kind of paintbrushed her a couple of times, just like you don't even belong in the ring with me. And then Billie started to build the momentum. Billie started to beat her up, felt like she was gonna win. They looked very crisp. They were very crisp in the ring together. They did not have any real misses. It was very hard hitting. I thought they got a crowd really hot into the match. I thought the crowd was into both women. Let's go, Billie, CEO. I thought that some of the ending sequences did have me nervous for Mercedes' health. I thought the two spots actually. I guess she was trying to do the one winged angel, and Mercedes just tucked her neck in. I actually had to rewind it live. Like I saw it, I'm like, oh my god, she's dead. I paused it, rewound. I'm like, oh, okay, she tucked her neck in. Good. Then I
yeah.
watched the match. And I also thought Billie going for that senton, that swanton, sorry, and hitting the ring apron flush was like, whoa, like that's a
Yeah.
crazy bump to take. I enjoyed that Mercedes beat her with the bank statement. And I just wonder if Mercedes being so smart in the ring said, okay, I'm not going to pin her with the moneymaker because I want to sell my neck. So I'm going to beat her with the bank statement because it doesn't require me to do any heavy lifting. I wonder about that. Or was it Billie is the Bailey fan, the hugger, and did she
Yeah.
want to beat her with the bank statement as kind of that homage? Um, you know, I just thought that was a great TV match, and honestly, for me personally, I thought it was a better match than the second Momo match. Honestly, I
You
enjoyed
know,
it more.
you know what's so funny? I swear, guys, anyone, if you've been listening a long time, Raj and I don't discuss too much ahead of time what we're going to talk about. I was going to say, uh, unpopular opinion. If you take away the fact that one was in front of 2,000 Omaha, Nebraska fans during a snowstorm, and one was in front of 12,000 fans in LA at a pay per view, watch it on mute. I was going to say, unpopular opinion, but I thought it was better than the Momo match. And that's not because the Momo match wasn't great. I loved the Billie Mercedes match. I
And
loved it. It was um It touched every part of why I'm a Mercedes fan. The fact that she can put on a TV match that, if you've been following, they did build it. Her and Billie have been backstage a bunch of times over the last couple, weeks. But even if you didn't and you just tuned in, it's a very, very entertaining TV match. They had a lot of spots, to your point, like it was a pay per view. I think that move Billie does is the Segoy driver. I don't know if I'm saying that the right
Hmm.
way, but yeah, it's tight. I mean, split second wrong on that, and it goes poorly. Um, I loved the idea of doing it right near the ropes and the way Mercedes landed, and her leg was basically just in the ropes. Veteran versus the kid, storytelling, just fantastic. Billie, not only does she have that crazy bump cell gene that is going to do her very, very well, um, more athletic than you think, right? When she ramps up for some of the big
Hmm.
moves, she really looks smooth. Um, and I say more athletic than you think because her character is a little bit of just like a little bit crazy. Um, she does the thing with the just almost unassuming at the beginning, and then she's just wild in the ring. But I thought they had fantastic chemistry. I've watched the match 4 times. And what's funny is it actually reminds me of old school Mercedes because when she was never on pay per view, so maybe not old school, but middle of the middle times, I used to have Raw matches on my DVR, and because we weren't getting these big pay per view matches, when she would have a banger on TV, I'd have it on DVR for 7 days, and I'd make sure to watch it 2 or 3 times just because I was trying to get my fill. Because we weren't getting the big pay per view matches. So I've watched it 4 times just because it's 14 minutes. It's the perfect amount of time that I can just kind of put it on and study it, enjoy it. But I love that she went with the bank statement. I think that was a direct callback to Bailey. Um, that was more NXT Sasha Banks than we get to see most of the time. That match was coded like NXT Sasha Banks, just her demeanor, the paintbrushing. Um, so Mercedes was busting out. I think that stuff specifically for Billie, and then holding the bank statement, not just late on the bell, but like late, late on the bell, like really late.
Hmm.
No, it was my favorite match of the year, of the calendar year so far. It was my favorite Mercedes match.
Okay.
Um, my favorite match since the second Chris match, which was right at the end of 2024, right? So I agree with you. I thought it was better than the Momo match. I think the Momo match is graded properly, and then I would say history will underrate this match because it happened on TV, but it was fantastic.
You talk about Billie being a sneaky good athlete,
Hmm.
but that's not what she's known for. I gotta say, it kind of reminds me of Mercedes.
What?
Mercedes is a really good athlete. If you know her history, she was a 10-year-old sprint champion in Iowa. And she never gets like nobody ever talks about her as this tremendous athlete. And I don't think anybody will ever mistake Mercedes or Billie Starkz for Bianca Belair or Tiffany Stratton in terms of just raw athleticism, right?
Yeah,
But they're really good professional wrestlers, but they know how to use their hidden athleticism at the perfect times. And I
yeah,
thought Billie did that very well in this match. Like she did the outside swanton, I think, onto Mercedes, right? Like
yeah.
she did it on, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen somebody take a standing swanton in a while. Like, I
Not
mean,
usually on TV either.
we saw it, but it was more of a stunt move where Tiffany jumped off the Tron and pinballed everybody, but that was more of a stunt. This was
Well, and she
like
had people to
actually,
catch her.
yeah, this
Yeah,
was in the flow of a wrestling match. Like, hey,
yeah,
I'm trying to beat this person, so I'm gonna I'm going to damage them, but I'm willing to put my own body at risk. I think, I don't know if it'll ever be as revered as this TV match I'm about to bring up for Mercedes, but I enjoyed this in the moment as much as I enjoyed her match with Nia Jax. The
Yeah,
match that she did in Boston, where the winner is the number one contender for the SummerSlam title, Alexa Bliss, I really enjoyed this match as much as that one. Now, that match had a couple of advantages. Number one, it was in Boston.
yeah,
So, the crowd was very hot for Mercedes and they were strictly babyface heel. There was no let's go Nia Sasha chance. It was
yeah.
100% Mercedes. And one of the all-time great spots in that match for me in Mercedes' career is she took the Samoan drop, and as Nia is going to go pin her, she rolled out of the ring, and the crowd went crazy because they kind of figured out, yeah, she's surviving.
Yeah.
I really thought this match was awesome, and I think that what it tells me about her currently, Mercedes, that is that she might never have the platform she once had in terms of eyeballs. Like, I think it's honest for us to say now that AEW might never get back to 1 million viewers a week. I mean, it can. There's a chance it will, but it hasn't in 2 years. So, what are the odds it's going to happen? But she just seems to be enjoying herself so much more, and the diversity of the opponents she's having, Chris, Willow, Stephanie, Momo, Hazuki, Cheetah. I guess we're gonna get Athena, Sky Blue, Harley Cameron, and the fact that
Mina.
Mina, and she's the one leading all of these matches, and she's getting to paint the picture in the ring that she wants to paint. Like, when you wrestle in WWE, you wrestle their style. Whether
Yeah.
you're Io Sky, whether you're Bianca Belair, whether you're Sasha Banks, you wrestle their style. Even Stephanie Vacour, it's like they give her as much as they can, but she still has to stay within the kind of boundaries. I feel like this version of Mercedes, she doesn't have boundaries. She can
Yeah.
have multiple stylistic matches. She can do a lucha match. She can do like the Chris match. I went back and watched the second Chris match 2 days ago. And yeah, that was an AEW match. Like, that was not a
No.
Mercedes match. That was I don't want to say it's a stunt match, but she did some stuff in there that I was like, holy cow, like she did a tombstone on the ring apron. Like,
I
that's
know.
serious business. So yeah.
I it's crazy because I actually think that this Billie match is the best marriage I've seen her create thus far of a Mercedes match and an AEW match. Because the psychology was very Mercedes with some of the spots mixed in that AEW fans are used to. And she was able to do that because Billie, again, is a no BS.
Hmm.
She'll do anything, she's not going to be that performer that's like, well, we're in Omaha, Nebraska. Why would I send on to the outside? Like, um, she's going to go for it. Just like Mercedes, she's down like that. So I actually felt like we've talked about her getting over with the AEW crowd, the hardcore AEW crowd. If this match doesn't help get her over with that crowd where they really, really respect her, along with the Momo match getting kicked in the throat, they're never going to respect her. And I'm not saying that they're not. I'm saying that these are the types of things that it will take to get them to realize that she's there and she's there to be an AEW talent. She's not phoning it in. She's never phoned it in, guys. She's never once
No.
phoned it in. She's been unhappy and unfortunately depressed in past years and always gave her all to her opponent and in the ring. So On that note, I want to give a PSA. Based on the comments that we get on YouTube and some on people who interact with us on X, we do have some people who listen to this show who miss her being in WWE, all the way down the line to some people who do not watch her in AEW and just want Sasha Banks back. There are people listening who feel that way. I do want to throw something out there for you guys as fans. Indy Hartwell had a behind the scenes vlog for their House of Glory match, and it dropped, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday. And the last 2 minutes of it are her and Mercedes hanging out backstage after the match. They just put on a really good match at House of Glory. It was Indy's dream to wrestle Mercedes. On top of that, Indy almost lost her career, last year being released by WWE, being from Australia. It's very confusing what a performer in her situation is going to do. So, wrestling Mercedes in New York was a huge moment for her, and she was very emotional about it. But for anyone who questions what Mercedes is doing now, go watch that 2 minutes, because she's most of the time that the camera's on, she's Mercedes Moné. And then sometimes she dials it back and she might be like half and half. Guys, this was 2 minutes of Mercedes Varnado. None of the Mercedes Moné exterior was on. This was Mercedes, the one that people who work with her say is this incredibly nice, great woman to work with. Fans who are closest to her get to see this Mercedes. This genuine twinkle in her eye talking to Indy about their match and about their history. Like sparkle in her eyes, happy. And if you're a fan of her, I would just say go watch it. And you can't argue with the decision that she's made. She just looks so freaking happy. And why wouldn't you want that for her as a fan? But I felt like it was 2 minutes behind the scenes. She really let her guard down for Indy more than she does even on her fan lives, on her exclusive fan lives. She's always got a little Mercedes Moné going on the fan lives, that protection, but she didn't have any of that armor up, and you could just see how freaking happy she is. To your point, Raj, that she's just getting to make magic in a bunch of different ways with a bunch of different people in a bunch of different venues. I thought it was super informative as to where her psyche is right now and how much she's enjoying what she's doing.
There are people who get into the professional wrestling business because of the money. And then there are people who get into the professional wrestling business because they love professional wrestling. And along the way, they hope the money comes with it.
Yeah.
The first category, by his own admission, is somebody who is rightfully so, by the way, going into the WWE Hall of Fame this year, which is Lex Luger. Lex Luger, I can't remember his last name, but it's Larry something. He was a football player and always wanted to be a football player, and couldn't, got cut, couldn't make it in the NFL, CFL, etc. And somebody told him, hey, try this professional wrestling thing. You could make some money out of it, because he didn't have a plan B after football. He never watched wrestling, never loved it, but got into the industry and actually saw a void. So for those who don't know, Lex Luger is the first professional wrestler to get a guaranteed contract ever.
Mm-hmm.
He is the first. He should be in the Hall of Fame for that alone, because from
Right.
a business standpoint, he changed the industry, but he never loved wrestling. He admitted he never loved wrestling. He looked at it as just a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this is a nice way to make a very nice living. I don't care for the fans. I don't care for their passion. Now, obviously, he's probably changed his tune now, but this is how he got into business. Mercedes is legitimately one of those individuals who loves professional wrestling, the story of it, the art of it, wants to be the best. It's her desire to be the best. And I truly believe if she's wrestling in front of 20 people or 20,000 or 10 or 100,000, which she's done all four of, I think she's happy in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
And I think you talk about Mercedes never phoning it in, never checking out, and I agree with that. But there was a time in her career you could tell as a fan she was not the same wrestler, which is a month after they won the tag belts the first time, the Elimination Chamber tag belts, and the leading up to that match in WrestleMania, the four-way women's tag title match. He had a match with Peyton Royce.
Yep.
And at that moment, I was like, oh my God, she does not look happy here. Like, she doesn't look like she wants to be here. She doesn't look like she's into this anymore. And then when she, walked away and took a break, I was not shocked at all because you could tell that somebody who, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, might have been the most over person in the whole business got
Yep.
booked in such a manner. And I think what it was for her is it's not that she was booked to lose. I don't think Mercedes has ever cared about winning or losing. I think it's if she got booked to lose, but they were meaningful stories and
Oh yeah.
matches, I think she'd have been okay. But she was at a point where, I mean, she lost. There was a match she lost to Sonya Deville in like 1 minute. Like, she just got kicked in the head, lost 1, 2, 3. Like, it was to the point where she was almost an enhancement talent. And I think for her and how much work she put into the craft, it got to a point where it's just too much. Now, she came back 2019. And I think other than this run we're seeing with her right now, and probably the 2015 stuff in NXT, I really loved the 2019 to pre SummerSlam blue hair Sasha Banks. I loved that story arc. I thought she was phenomenal on the microphone, in the ring. She had some of the best matches of her career, in my opinion. She was great. She was just a top performer. Pizza Hut commercial, backstage segments with Roman Reigns. Like, she was doing everything.
Yeah.
But I do think having the rug pulled from under her in that like, I don't know what happened at SummerSlam. I'm not going to speculate, but she came back. She has the feud with Becky and Bianca. She beats both of them in singles matches, which, looking back, is kind of crazy to think about it, that, they let her beat both of these two women. And then they say, nah, you're not good enough to fight Charlotte. We're going to go with Ronda Rousey. I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin for her. Like, I
And
think that was okay. If they don't at least give me something, or I feel slighted, I'm going to take my career into my own hands. And I always wonder why people are so obsessed with her going back to WWE. Like, and let me preface this, and before I turn it back to you, I am not. I've said this on this platform multiple times. I am not the biggest AEW fan as a totality of the promotion. Most of their men's stuff turns me off. The stuff I saw on Wednesday with Moxley taking the spikes to the back, like, I can't watch that stuff because it's not even about suspension of disbelief. It's just, I think it's just bad entertainment. It's tacky. But I think what I am getting out of her specifically in the ring, if this is the rest of her career, she never goes back to WWE. She doesn't get the swan song. She doesn't get the Cody Rhodes comeback. And all I get is these great in-ring matches from her. I can accept that. And I have moved on because, quite honestly, WWE hasn't really missed a beat without her. And I think she hasn't missed a beat without them. It's one of
no.
the scenarios where both parties are doing well, and we should just respect what both parties are doing. And I always ask this about the quote unquote, I love Sasha Banks, but until she comes back as Sasha Banks, I'm not going to watch her, or I'm not going to support her, or I'm not interested in her. I always wonder, are you really a fan of her, or are you a fan of the promotion and she's a character in that promotion you're a fan of? Because if you're really a
Right.
fan of her, you'll watch her work no matter where she is. And I am a
Yep.
fan, as you are, obviously, of her work. So whether she wrestles in House of Glory, New Japan, Stardom, AEW, Ring of Honor, potentially, I'm gonna watch her because I'm a fan of her. The
Yep.
person, Justine Mercedes Renato.
Yep. And anyone who hasn't taken that, dipped their toe in that water yet, I would say if you could seek out the Billie Starkz match, I promise you, you'll enjoy it if you're a fan from, WWE. Real quick, and then we'll move on to Timeless Toni Storm. Uh, it's funny that you brought up Lex Luger, who again for the money, and then you bring up Mercedes, and they're on totally different ends of the spectrum. But for those of us who've been with Mercedes this whole time, that 2016 to 2019, part of that unhappiness and finding herself was being one of the best in the world, one of the most over in the world, but being taken advantage of because, oh, she's passionate about this. She's not going to fight back. She's not going to demand her value. She's not going to put her foot down. And that 3 years is really her coming of age to say, you know what? I can love this, but also say you are not going to take advantage of me. And I need to be paid to this level and I need to be treated to this level. And I'm not going to settle for less than that. And I think that's what's so great about literally her new character, her new, gimmick outside of the WWE is Mercedes Money and pay me the money. The whole character is built around I don't show up unless you pay me. Um, and what's great about that is she is paid. People complain on the internet that she's the highest paid, but also if you're paying attention, the love is still there in spades because she just did a House of Glory show uh, for 1,000, 1,500 people. I'm sure they couldn't hit her normal rate for that, right? Um, there's a love of the game factor there. And two, she'll have this crazy match with Billie Starkz in Omaha, Nebraska, getting there during a snowstorm because AEW treats her right. And so she just gets to focus on doing what she loves and not whether or not she's being, you know, respected. She's clearly respected. So I think that's what's most important to her. And I will root for her getting what she deserves all day, every day. I don't care where it's at. I just care that, and it's not just related to her. I care that the performers get what they deserve.
Before
Um,
you ask, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, no, go ahead.
Before you ask me the question we discussed, to show you how much she loves the game, have to give him credit here. Our favorite observer who rates matches talked about her love in a positive. He said, look, this is the person who makes a lot of money for this company who could have easily said, hey, to get from Florida to Omaha in a snowstorm, it's not happening this week. Let's just redo the match another time, right?
Yep.
She flew to Des Moines, Iowa, and drove from Des Moines, Iowa to Omaha in the snowstorm to make sure she could give Billie the match that she wanted to give Billie. And this is coming from that reporter. I am not that I took this from that one of the podcasts that this did happen. Here's where I'm going to add my own spin of context. I used to live in Chicago for 8 years. I worked in Omaha, Nebraska. So I would fly every week, Monday morning from Midway Airport to Omaha. I would work in Omaha Monday to Friday, or Monday to Thursday. Friday morning, I would get on a plane, go back to Chicago. And I did that every week for 6 years. I had an apartment in Omaha. I had an apartment in Chicago. My ex-wife was in school still in Chicago. I have driven. There were some weekends where I couldn't fly from Omaha to Chicago because of weather, because of things. And I have done the drive, the exact drive that Mercedes did from Des Moines, Iowa to Omaha. I have done hundreds of times in my life. Because I would go to Des Moines sometimes just to get away from Omaha when I couldn't go home to Chicago. And it's not an easy ride because it's literally cornfields. From Des Moines, Iowa to Omaha,
Flat.
Nebraska, it's literally flat cornfields. And the snow, it isn't like getting a dusting of snow in Texas and people lose their mind and don't know how to drive. Or I don't know what kind of snow you guys get in Nashville. But both of us are from parts of the world where you get real snow.
Yep.
Michigan, Toronto. This is real snow in Iowa and in Nebraska. So for Mercedes, who by her own admission, not the greatest driver, to go from Des Moines, Iowa to Omaha in snow, that tells you how much she not only cares about the business, but how much she cares about her fellow performer, because she knew this is Billie's big break, and the fans, because they were fans who probably paid to specifically see her because she is enough of a brand in this business, in this genre, where people will pay just to see her. House of Glory show. I know many people who listen to this podcast who went to that show and left when her match ended. They
Yep.
bought the ticket for her. They left the ticket for her. And before you ask the question, yeah. So go ahead. So ask the question.
Yep. So Gil, I think, longtime listener and friend, much longer time friend
Mhm.
on X, part of the crew for sure, asked you this question. So I will ask it on air here for him. You famously have said that Manami Toyota is your GOAT. You think she's the
Mhm.
greatest of all time,
Yes,
based on tape trading that you did back in the 90s and how she really opened your eyes to women's wrestling. Um, what and then you generally say that Mercedes is pretty clearly the greatest North American talent of all time.
yes, I
What would
do.
it take? So the question from Gil is, what would it take for Mercedes to surpass Manami Toyota in your eyes as the greatest of all time? What would she have to do?
Yeah. So me and Gil had a little bit of a dialogue on Twitter about this in DMs where we talked about music and we talked about basketball, like, for Michael Jordan fans, what can LeBron do? And I've always said that, that one's a little bit easier for LeBron because I like, look, if LeBron were to get two more MVPs, that puts him at six, which is one more than Michael, and gets one or two more titles with all the longevity he's had, it's kind of hard to say he isn't the best because what is it that he hasn't done, right? Whereas right now, if their careers ended today, LeBron has all the longevity counting stats, which you can't. He's gonna run away and hide from everybody ever. But Jordan still has more MVPs. He has more titles. He has quote unquote more accolades in terms of like the all NBA defense and defensive player of the year, all that stuff. Where he's done it in such a shorter amount of time, it's like it's so hard for LeBron to catch him because Jordan's had done it, and LeBron, as he gets older, it's going to be harder for him to catch because, like MVPs, I mean, I've long said I feel like LeBron should have two more MVPs. Like I feel like he got robbed in 2 years, but it's over now, right? This is different, and so there is a way that I think Mercedes can be the best women's wrestler of all time, in my opinion. Manami Toyota is kind of the foremother for a lot of these women you see today: Io Sky, Asuka, Kairi Sane, Mercedes, Willow. A lot of them cite Manami Toyota and the Joshi women of the '90s as their influence. You go back and watch that stuff. They were so ahead of their time. They were kind of changing the industry in the moment, but you didn't realize it. Even for the men, they were selling out Tokyo Dome, 40,000 people, 50,000 people, all women's shows were selling out. Think about that. An all women's wrestling show in the 90s doing 50,000 people in the Tokyo Dome. That's crazy. But there is a way she can do it. And here's how. If she can come back to WWE, she can do it two ways. She can come back to WWE and become Cody Rhodes. Then I would say she has a legitimate case to being the best because she took a company that was maybe here or already here and elevated it like Cody did, right? Like you can make a lot of cases on who is responsible for the recent hot streak of WWE, but you cannot understate Cody Rhodes' importance. When he came back, they kind of took off. And I know the bloodline was hot, but Cody was like that next John Cena that they have long looked for. Like
They were moving
pure,
fast. He kind of turbo boosted it.
yeah,
Yeah.
he turbo boosted it. So if Mercedes comes back and turbo boosts the WWE to another level, that's another way. Or it's the simpler way. This is the easier way for her to do it. Turbo boost AEW. Look, I know if you microanalyze all the statistics and data, there are smidgens of the Mercedes as a draw in AEW. Look at this match with Billie. Highest rated segment overall and in the demo was the Billie match. For the whole show, 676,000 viewers, I think 250, 260,000 in the demo. So they had the highest demo, they had the highest overall number. So that tells me she's and you can't say it's the lead-in because it was not the lead-in. She was the second match. So people dipped and came back for her. So there's elements of Mercedes is a draw in these numbers. But if she can get let's say she can take AEW back to a million a week, where she's the face of the company, she's in all the main event segments, she has all the top stories, she's main eventing over the roster. I can't deny her at that point because now she has clearly carried a company to a different level. When she got to AEW, they were about as cold as you could be. The surprising thing to me is they haven't really gotten that hot. They haven't really gotten hot with her Osprey Okada. But if she can in the next year or two take them back to a million plus a week, 6,000 a week in house show numbers, but she's like the face. Like when you watch WWE TV, you know who the faces are. You know it's Cody Rhodes. You know it's Roman Reigns. You know it's Punk, Rollins, maybe Rollins, Jay, I guess, from an intro standpoint. But even on the women's side, you know Rhea Ripley is different. How they present her. Can we get it? Can I see a Mercedes do that? Because in the ring, I think Mercedes will build up enough of a resume from this point forward to be on the level of Manami Toyota. She's never going to be the innovator because Manami did it 20 years before she did. So that's kind of out of the wood. That's impossible for her to get to at this point because Manami was doing it so much earlier and was doing it at a time where there was really no rules for what the women were doing in Japan. So she got a canvas. But a company that has strongly, in my opinion, never really promoted women's wrestling in AEW, if Mercedes could be the top star in that company and legitimately on TV is presented like the face of the company, and they actually grow with her back, I can't deny her at that point because I think that's as tough a task as any wrestler could have. I'm not so sure Roman Reigns could go to AEW and they could go back to what they used to be.
No, and it's doubly hard for Mercedes because as we've learned as fans over the last year, um, the core AEW fandom has a segment of it that doesn't like women's wrestling.
Yeah.
And I'm not even gonna, some of it feels misogynistic. Some of it just feels like they're not interested in it for whatever reason. So I believe that's part of her mission statement. I've said that a couple times. I think that she looks at that and says, "Oh, a whole new crowd of people to prove how great this is to. I'm in." Kind of how she felt when she was in NXT and coming up in WWE to begin with. So, um, I have her as my greatest of all time already. I'm just enjoying the ride. I also have LeBron as my greatest of all time already, though I absolutely get it's like a 51-49 thing for me with LeBron and Michael. It's so close. I'm just done arguing with people about it in my life. They were both I got to see their entire careers, both of them. So I'm excited. I'm happy about that. But um Mercedes, a couple of the milestones I would love to see as a fan of her. That way I could easily make the argument and it's not a 51-49 thing. It's like a slam dunk Wayne Gretzky type argument is main eventing AEW pay-per-views. Main eventing
Yeah.
All In would be the big one. And I'm going to give a very specific thing to your point that you want to see. Here's how I think it could happen. I'm not going to prognosticate what happens if she goes back to WWE, but the AEW path. Listen, we're going to get the Athena matches, and for the crazies, for the wrestling fandom crazies, that thing is going to hit. I hope we get a trilogy. I know the matches are going to be incredible. I don't know that it will be commercially successful. I'm just being honest. I don't know that they are going to get a million viewers because Athena confronts Mercedes. In fact, I know that they're not going to. Now, can they start there and catch fire and get a couple 100K people interested in it? I think so. I think they can. It's a long shot, though. The money feud where we'll get the type of clips that will create viewership, that will get the type of moments that will create viewership is the timeless Toni Storm
Mm.
Mercedes extended feud that I think can create the type of TV where they really, really peak viewership. The matches probably won't be as good as the Athena matches, right? Because that's not Tony's deal. But Toni, as a character, is one of the very, very best. She creates great, great TV moments, and I think Mercedes will feed off of that, and they'll do some fantastic, timeless television together. Um, and I think that that's a perfect pivot into talking about.
We are going to talk about Tony Storm, but I got a question. You said something that I wanted to retort right away, so I'm going to do it now. You said you feel like there's a segment of AEW fans that don't like women's wrestling.
Yeah.
I'm not even worried about the misogynistic point. I mean, I've attended AEW shows with you. It's kind of evident in the air.
Yeah.
But would you say that that fan base that maybe historically doesn't like women's wrestling, you could make the case they have been more invested in Toni and Mariah than anything else on the whole card,
Hmm.
to where their own fans, the hardcore AEW fans, wanted that match to main event and was very disappointed in Toni that it didn't main event and that they wanted the Hollywood ending and they were into that feud. So what do you okay, so I think you're correct that there is a segment of the fan base that doesn't like women's wrestling. But do you feel like they love the Toni Mariah feud because it was more blood and guts? Because it was more it was like an AEW story, but with women? Why do you think that feud resonated so well with a fan base that you yourself admitted doesn't love women's wrestling?
Great question. And there's a direct correlation that I'll make. The fan base that doesn't like women's wrestling has the same DNA, if not being the same people, as the Attitude Era wrestling fan.
Mhm.
They want shock factor wrestling. They want they want to be shocked and awed by what is occurring. You know, someone beating up their boss on TV. They're the ones that want to see Toni get involved and get beat up. They're the ones that want to see blood. They're the ones that want to see middle fingers. And Toni and Mariah did a fantastic job of creating that feud around it was risque, right? They had the piece with Mina where it was like the three-way basically kind of love triangle. Um, that AEW fan, that's absolutely the DNA of kind of what they like. And at the time when AEW came up, remember WWE was about as vanilla as they had been, right? They were telling vanilla stories. There was very little risque happening, and I'm not saying I'm for or against that, right? I think any story done well can have. I can do a B good guy bad guy story done well with good writing and good reasons why this person's good and why this person's bad, as well as I can do a story like Mariah and Tony and enjoy that. But I think those women knocked it out of the park with a story that hit the AEW DNA with the right, they had blood. Remember, the very first turn, they told the AEW fan there will be blood in this. Um, Tony got busted open with the shoe, and then all the way through to the ending. So I just think that that was a match that was built for AEW fans, and I'm thankful that Tony and Mariah did it. And I think Mercedes and Tony could be that perfect marriage of telling some of that salacious type of story. I know Tony will ramp it up for sure. And then Mercedes can bring the outside viewer who will recognize Tony, by the way. And so it will put Tony's great work on an even bigger platform. The in ring piece of it, not to say Mariah is not great in ring, but um, Mercedes is the ace, right? People tune in to watch her wrestle. So I think it could be the best of both worlds fully colliding. And especially as Mercedes earns her AEW card with that fan base, like she did this week with Billie. I think it could be the biggest thing that I think it could main event and all in. It will over even some of their best men's matches. I think that that is the top feud on their side of the business for sure.
Okay. So as we pivot to timeless Tony Storm, I've been long thinking about in the history of professional wrestling, has there ever been a greater transformation from character to character, from rocker, tomboy, head banging Tony Storm to timeless Tony Storm? So I looked in the archives of my history of wrestling and I thought about, so some come to mind, right? Everybody's going to say the lazy one, Stunning Steve, the Stone Cold Steve Austin. He
Yeah,
had long blonde hair, he had a robe, he had a valet, and then he became Stone Cold. But that's not really the whole Stone Cold story. He was he already cut his hair short, and you started to see a little bit of the Stone Cold character. If you go back and watch the Hollywood Blondes with Brian Pillman, they were heelish, they had that edge to them, and they became kind of cool. I love the Hollywood Blondes. I am a fan of that. They're one of my favorite tag teams of all time. They used to do this. They were great. But then he went to ECW. See, people forget about this part of Steve Austin's career. He goes to ECW and he started to become Stone Cold in ECW. What
yeah,
happened was is WWE hired him and then made him the ringmaster. So you never really he went back and then he came back. But I don't think that's even close to the transformation that this is. So then I started to think, is there a wrestling analogy? I couldn't come up with one. I could not find in the history of professional wrestling. Somebody said Papa Shango to Kama, the ultimate fighting machine, to the Godfather. And I'm like, those are three distinct characters, but like I always look like people forget the Godfather is Papa Shango, but I just feel like Kama and Papa Shango are so forgettable characters because they were around in a time when wrestling was so cold that
yeah,
we remember him as the Godfather, and from this point forward, he's the Godfather. But
yeah,
like rocker Toni Storm was kind of over, and she totally reinvented herself for timeless Toni Storm and took herself to another level. in the genre. So I had to go into music. I had to go into hip hop. So, and I have props for this one. So I'm going to take everybody back on a little bit of a journey here. So this is, I have an extensive cassette collection. If you know me, I have record collection too, but this is an album, 1989, 1990, the Cactus album by Third Base. And on this album is a song called The Gas Face. And on The Gas Face is an underground, at the time, not known rapper named Zeb Love X. And Zeb Love X to me is rocker Toni Storm. Okay. And where I'm going with this is Zeb Love X was a really good rapper, really good MC. Gas Face is a classic song. He had a classic verse on that song. He got a record deal because of that song, that verse. And he was part of a group called KMD. KMD was his Zeb Love X and his brother Sub Rock. Sub Rock, rest in peace. He's passed away. And I'll get to Zeb Love X here in a sec. And so Zeb Love X made the album called what is KMD's first album called? I feel like I should know this. It's Who, I think, is it Who Me? Yeah, Who Me, I think is the first album. No, Mr. Hood. Mr. Hood is the first album. And they had a song called Peach Fuzz, and it had some buzz, and it was okay. And then they came up with a second album called Black Bastards, but it never got released because the artwork was too controversial. Now it's made the rounds now, but in the 90s, 94, it didn't make it. And Zeb Love X disappeared. Brother passed away, disappeared, and he reinvented himself to one of the most iconic rappers of all time in terms of having a following, unique presentation, classic albums, just somebody who is revered through the genre. So here is my analogy, and I'm going to take off my glasses and I'm going to put on my mask. So Zeb Love X, for those of you who don't know, became MF Doom. And MF Doom is somebody, everybody knows who MF Doom is, right? Everybody knows what this mask is. Everybody knows he has the classic album with Madlib called Mad Villainy. You know this mask, right, Billy?
Of course.
So everybody knows who MF Doom is. He's one of the most, like I said, revered, iconic rappers. By the way, rest in peace, MF Doom, who passed away, I think, 3 years ago. But I couldn't think of another Toni Storm analogy except for MF Doom, because I was trying to think. I've never seen a wrestler have some level of success, but totally just throw it all away and change everything about the character, from the promo to the look to the presentation. And even the style of wrestling is changed for her. Right? Like Toni Storm is somebody people forget won the Mae Young Classic. And I
Was
believe
considered very good in the ring, yeah.
And I believe she beat Io to win that tournament.
She did.
So it's like she was considered one of the best women's wrestlers in the world in the ring. And Zeb Love X was always a great MC. But like when he reinvented himself to MF Doom, it went to this different stratosphere of love and admiration and genre. And people wait in line for merchandise, and his masks resell for multiple times the purchased value, and his records are collector items, and he has like a subculture of following. And I look at timeless Toni Storm and what she has become, and that's the analogy I have with her, is she's just this different person now, and she's just taken herself to such a different level of performer and superstar that was the analogy I came up with, is MF Doom.
It's great because I think the thing that sets her apart, like Rhea Ripley is completely changed as to the way she came up, but you can see some of the DNA of who Rhea Ripley is today in her earliest videos. Still the way she wrestles, the edge to it. It's like something that was at a root and then grew to what it is now. The Toni Storm thing is like completely uprooted from what she was. And I think a lot of wrestlers have changed gimmicks over the years, but very rarely. You say she was successful. She won the Mae Young Classic. She was also champion in AEW as Rocker Toni
Mhm.
Storm. You know, her first
Yeah,
run or two was as Rocker Toni Storm. So the old adage of if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing does not apply, because I think I'd love to hear the story of how she came up with it, how she came up with the gimmick, and why she felt the urgency to chase it, because it was a hell of a leap off of where she could have stayed very, very comfortably. And if we're missing someone, guys, if someone has done this in a similar way where they were champion and still said, screw it, I'm going to go all the way hard left this way, completely away from who I've been. We'd love to hear it in the comments. I can't check you on this and think of anyone in wrestling. You know, Papa Shango was not champion. He did wrestle
yeah,
Ultimate Warrior for the championship, but Godfather was never champion either. So it doesn't fit because it wasn't at the top rung. Um, I think Stone Cold's probably the closest, but he wasn't a world champion as Stunning Steve. You know, he was
yeah,
a lot of people change up their flow and their gimmick when they're trying to get to the top. There's 100 versions of that. I mean, Kane was Isaac Yankem. He had a dentist gimmick, for crying out loud. But like, it's very, very rare that someone was working at the top of the card and completely changed it up. So if we're missing someone, tell us. I
I
don't think we are.
I remember when I was, you know, in that space, the music space, and buying records, and I still do it. But I remember hearing an MF Doom record, and I can't remember what year it was, and I didn't even know it was, Zeb Love X from KMD. Like, somebody had to tell me that. They're like, you know who that is, right? I'm like, no, it's like Zeb Love X, and I'm like, wow, okay, KMD. Oh, he changed his whole thing up. He's this guy with the mask, and you know, this mask is like so well known worldwide now. Like, this is one of the iconic images in hip hop. Like, the Wu-Tang symbol is probably number one, but this is up there. I mean, when you show this mask, I know people who I didn't even know like hip hop know who MF Doom is. A
Yeah.
friend of mine's husband, he's actually a border patrol, and he didn't really listen to hip hop. He listens to like alternative rock and stuff like that, but he loves MF Doom, and he has action figures and stuff. So I'm like, okay. And I look at Timeless Tony Storm, man, and I'm so impressed with how she has reinvented herself. And, speaking of reinventions, we have long, way ahead of this curve, wanted heel Naomi. We have asked for it. We have wanted it.
Yes.
We have said, when Jade got attacked, we were like, oh my goodness, are they going to actually do it? Is it heel Naomi? Because we predicted it was her, but are they going to go all in with her? Is she going to change her look? Is she going to have like a viciousness to her? Is she going to be different? And so this week, start with our WWE recap. Let's start right there. We got the first in-ring glimpse of heel Naomi. She comes out to the ring in all black. She has no colored hair. She has caution tape. I guess this is her new kind of proceed with caution when you
Hmm.
approach her. She came out. So it was Jade Cargill and Liv Morgan who were having what I thought was a pretty good TV match. I thought it
Really
was
good
good.
match. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I could make the argument that's the best I've seen Jade in a singles match, you know, long time, maybe ever.
Yes.
And I have to give this, and maybe we should talk about her next week in detail. Liv Morgan is one of the best women's wrestlers in the world, and she's also one of the best performers in the world. Overall package, she's high on my list. She has been on a roll since she actually lost the title to Rhea. She's gotten better. And I think
Yep.
from the EO match to present day, she's just been on a tear. But Liv Morgan gave Jade Cargill her first pinfall loss in WWE, and
Hmm.
it was due to interference from Naomi, who did cost Jade the match. What did you think of Jade's? What did you think of Naomi's presentation, and what did you think of her appearance?
Yeah, so excited for Naomi. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Any character beat changes we've been waiting for a long time. Real quick on Liv, I think absolutely. Unless something crazy happens over the next week. Next week will be a Liv Morgan episode. I'm so impressed with what she's put together, and I do think she's one of the glue people in WWE at the highest level. And wrestling don't work without high level glue people. And actually, um, when you have someone who is at the elite level who is also a glue person, it elevates the entire division.
Yeah,
So props to Liv. We'll discuss her more next week. It was the best match I've seen for Jade in quite some time, singles. Um, and I was just so Naomi comes out, interferes, Jade loses. Um, and then on top of that, Jade and Naomi have been feuding on Twitter over the last several days. And I think we said months ago, if they give Naomi something to work with, Naomi is a details person, just like Mercedes, just like Bailey. Naomi is a how do I tell this story in every medium that I can type of person. Here's the part that I'm actually shocked about. Jade and Naomi feuding on Twitter, not shocking. Great, love it. Building on the feud, not shocked. Still over here, kind of like talking mess with both of them. Her and Jade are going back and forth. Bianca, they're laying some groundwork for something with Bianca. Even if she doesn't do a full heel turn, she ain't playing that John Cena role right now because she's showing some cracks in the armor for sure. So
hmm
I'm gonna give Naomi credit because we haven't seen this from Bianca before. So I feel like this is a uh, Trinity centric type of storytelling. Um, and I really, really think that Trinity, Naomi, and Jade are going to have the first women's non-title match. It can't not be a Mania match, right? And so, what a feather in the cap. And I would go ahead and say that if when Naomi left TNA after being a great champion at TNA with a bunch of great matches, if you would have pulled her aside and said, "Hey, we don't know when you're going to be champion. We don't know if you're going to be champion, but you're going to get a feud that will be the first women's match to be on the Mania card without a title." I think that's the type of thing that Naomi Trinity, the real life person, would say, bet. That's such a ground. That's such an important ground to be broken. Um, it serves the type of purpose that I know she's out there to serve right now. So I'm really really happy for her. Um, and this heel run, I'm not limiting it to this Mania card breaking ground. She should win the title this year. She should
yeah,
be vicious. She should be the locker room should be afraid of her. I don't know if you caught this, but Michin did a TikTok video, and she got a bunch
hmm
of the girls from Raw and SmackDown plus Kevin Owens to be in the TikTok. And someone said, "Hey, Trinity loves TikTok. Why isn't she in the video?" And she goes, "Well, Naomi said if Jade's in the video, I'm not in it." And that's a type of energy we're gonna get in this heel run. So I'm all for it. What did you think?
Well, I actually commented to Michin on the video. I said, I think it's great that Naomi is not in this because she's kind of almost keeping kayfabe alive. Because
Yeah,
why would somebody who says I don't need anybody, I don't like anybody, be in a video with a bunch of people who
right.
she doesn't like? And obviously Jade's in the video, but it's not even about Jade. It's about her. Like, I'm done being this happy-go-lucky, smiley person. Like, I'm nasty, I'm mean, I'm vicious. This is the new me. I thought it was great that they left her out of it. I think it was intentional, obviously,
Yeah.
like to play up the character. What did I think of it? I mean, this is what I've wanted to see out of Naomi for years. I have long felt like Naomi may be the most underutilized performer on the women's division they've ever had.
Yeah.
Ever. She's always been over. She's always had a following. She does some phenomenal things in the ring that pop. You know, she's so athletic. She's beloved by everybody in the locker room. Like, you've never heard somebody say a bad thing about her,
Right.
ever. Like, even to the point when she walked out with Mercedes, they went so far to say, well, it was Mercedes brainwashed her. Even though Naomi's the older woman and is the one who showed Mercedes how to rent a car and everything, she could never do that on her own accord. She got influenced. Like, it's like, wow, she's that, revered. Um, I love the viciousness I saw of her in the ring.
Yeah.
Those punches looked like they had some juice to it. I thought the way she kicked and stomped her, the way she was slapping her in the face, the way she pushed her off the apron, and then, immediately changed her Twitter profile for that picture of Jade falling off the apron was great. I think Naomi has been a home run on Twitter or on X with this feud, basically talking about, how crappy Jade is. The Bianca part was interesting because a fan asked Jade, why didn't you tell Bianca that Naomi did it all this time? It's kind of on you. And she goes, I didn't trust her ass either. And I'm just thinking she made a comment. I didn't think Bianca was going to give like a speech about it, like,
Right.
like, this is what happens to me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, Bianca has enough storylines for 2 years now. She has
Right.
she has an Io story. She has a Rhea story. She has a Naomi story. She has a Jade story. She has a Liv Morgan story. Like, Bianca has enough material like for WrestleMania 43, so she's in good shape.
Bailey's her last friend.
Yeah, Bailey's her last friend of all things, right? Who would have thought that? So, I was very impressed with Jade in the match with Liv, and so I'm thinking, okay, we're getting a better version of Jade. Naomi's always been really good in the ring when she's been given the opportunity. She's proven that. I'm really looking forward to their singles match at WrestleMania. I hope they get time. I have a weird feeling that Jade's going to win, seeing how this thing has played out so far. With Jade losing already to Liv, I'm like, ugh. Because if they beat Jade again at WrestleMania, then the feud's kind of over. And it kind of really hurts Jade for a while, right?
I
But
I I think if Naomi's gonna win, it's gonna be because she hires some help.
yes.
Or Jade beats her and then Naomi hires some help and beats her at a later date. So I think that they're gonna go 1-1 ish regardless. I think both women will take a loss in the feud. I don't know how they'll finish it, but Naomi, God, I sound like I'm booking Sasha Banks because I hate when a hot turn um, takes a loss. Uh, but that's the way WWE books is the heel can take a loss because they can grow from it and become more
Yeah.
evil and plot for the future. But no, I think I actually like that Jade took a loss because they're willing to show that she can lose. So
Yeah.
I'm more confident that Naomi will beat her at least once.
I also think Jade taking a loss opens up a lot what you can do with Jade. The loss thing is one thing if it's in like with Mercedes and AEW because she has titles attached to it. So
Yeah,
beating her is going to be special, but Jade doesn't have a belt. So, win losses do matter, but if told in the right form, you can recover from losses. So I booked this whole thing on our group chat. And I'm going to quickly do it for everybody before we get to our next segment here, which involves Charlotte and Tiffany, who's a part of this story.
yeah,
So the way I would do this is, and we'll get to Charlotte and Tiffany here in a sec. I would have Tiffany win at WrestleMania and then turn heel. And Tiffany and Charlotte build up to SummerSlam, where Charlotte beats Tiffany for the title. Money in the Bank winner Naomi immediately cashes in on Charlotte, which keeps the Charlotte streak of always being cashed in alive. And Naomi wins the belt. And we are on the road to Naomi versus Bianca at the Royal Rumble. Before we get to Bianca Rhea, finally the singles match, I think Naomi with the title, a nice, decent sized run going to Bianca at the Royal Rumble and losing is what I'd like to see. Because I think Naomi has to win the title this year, but it has to be via Money in the Bank because it's the perfect plot point for Naomi, who is now saying it's about me. I don't care about anybody else. Well, what better tool than the Money in the Bank briefcase? Because that means somebody who has no remorse for anybody can strike at any time. And Charlotte has always been a huge Naomi supporter on screen and off screen. So wouldn't it be a great story to tell with them where Naomi cashes in and Charlotte's like, hey, I've always looked out for you. Why did you cash in on me? And Naomi's like, I'm about me. I don't care about you. I'm about me. So that's how I would do this.
Yeah, I, you put in the group chat that Tiffany would turn heel by just annihilating Charlotte,
mhm,
going after the knee.
yeah,
Because most people listening might go, "Gosh, man, this Tiffany Charlotte feud does not have the legs to make it to SummerSlam." But you did throw a different twist in there. You could even do all those same things at Money in the Bank, right? Where Naomi wins
mhm,
before Charlotte and Tiffany. So Charlotte would have, the same short reign, but it would just Tiffany would have a shorter reign. Um, I love the Naomi Money in the Bank thing because it reminds me of that CM Punk. I don't care who's behind me or who's with me. This can help me.
yeah.
I don't even need management or anyone on my side because this contract allows me to force my way onto the scene, which is when I think Money in the Bank is at its best. No, I really don't care how we get there. I'd love to see her win the title. You could even go from her to Tiffany because Tiffany and her um did
Yeah.
already have some, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. You could do that. That's right.
or if Charlotte does end up beating Tiffany, to your point, it'd be great for Naomi to basically undermine that relationship and say, I said I don't care about anyone. What is it that you're hard of hearing? And have her just annihilate Charlotte. I'd be down for it. Speaking of annihilate Charlotte, oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of annihilation, I think we are going to talk about the promo segment between Tiffany and Charlotte. And here is why I'm going to make the case for what I said about WrestleMania. This feud has not gone well for Tiffany.
At all.
Um, it has not gone well. She was super, super over, and she was white hot, and she had a really good match with Bailey, and she beat Nia clean. And I was happy that they're booking a babyface champion to get these nice, clean wins, look strong. Scarlett has gotten her at every turn. Then last week, I had some hope. I had some optimism. Like, okay, they made Tiffany really look strong. She did all her super spot stuff, kicked her in the head. I'm the new queen. Crowd's going crazy. I'm like, yeah, okay, we're getting somewhere. And honestly, this week, not only did they not move it forward, I think Tiffany took a step back this week. I think
Absolutely.
Tiffany's inexperience and her kind of um not being wrestling quick-witted hurt her this week because she was sticking to script. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna do what the office tells me. And
Yeah.
Charlotte, who seems to have more leeway, obviously because of her tenure and track record, she kind of seemed to be going off the cuff and countering and getting Tiffany tied up. She made Tiffany look really, really bad. And the only reason I want to book the feud the way I want to book it is at this point, I think babyface Tiffany is cooked. I don't think she can recover because if she wins at WrestleMania, all she is she wins the match, but she gets
Yeah.
nothing else for it. If she loses, she's finished anyway.
Yep.
So to me, the way to salvage what they have with Tiffany, who clearly people do like and want to cheer and want to buy merchandise for, I would at WrestleMania, out of the bell ring, I would have Tiffany and her stare, and Tiffany kicks her right in that leg that has the brace in it. Kick it right away. Smash it on the ring 5, 6, 7, 10 times. Take it outside, wrap it around the pole, maybe 5, 10 times. Where the ref is actually saying, Tiffany, stop. You're hurting her. You're taking this too far. Match is still going on. Tiffany spine busters her. Prettiest moonsault ever. 1, 2, 3. It's literally 3.5, 4 minutes. Bell's over. Tiffany gets the belt. Cheers, has her hand raised and takes the belt and keeps smashing Charlotte in the leg to the point where, again, I did not put this part in the chat, but I thought about it this morning. To the point, we're gonna hate this. Ric Flair runs out. He runs out. Charlotte cannot walk, and he's like, Tiffany, stop, please. Like, you're hurting her. It's over. Like, you won. And she slaps Ric Flair or spits in his face or something. That should do enough to get her booed. And now you have a story for Charlotte's comeback, which finally you get the Charlotte you want, which is
Yeah.
somebody who people want to support and get behind, and they have a reason to root for her. But Tiffany has to literally make it look like she broke her leg. And they almost have to bring like an air cast, stretcher job. Ric Flair's crying. Charlotte's mom is crying. To me, it has. I would even cross a line where you have Charlotte's ex-husband on the roster, which is Andrade. And most people probably don't know they're divorced. Maybe they do because it was on TMZ. You have him come out and be like, hey, it's enough. And they got to make Tiffany the nastiest heel. Now, I know people are like, well, you have Naomi's a nasty heel. Now you're going to make Tiffany. I'm like, you can never have enough heels in WWE because I
Yeah.
think they have way too many baby faces. So that's how I think you can salvage this feud. With that being said, what are your thoughts about what the feud is up to this point, and how do you feel about the segment that you saw on Friday?
I'm going to go ahead and just start and say anyone who thinks that your idea is ridiculous, they need to stop and think for a second that the feud has been bad enough that their correction has to occur. And so I applaud your thought of correcting. The number one thing you and I always advocate for in wrestling, no one should come out of major feuds looking bad. It shouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestlers are commodities. They both work for the company. If you lower one of your commodities, you have failed when you are in charge of elevating both, right? So we revere people who can elevate someone in a loss. Mercedes elevates people even when she beats them. Ric Flair is one of maybe
Yes.
if you are going to say that Ric Flair is the greatest wrestler of all time, Mount Rushmore, it is because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was able to elevate local champions to where people would buy tickets for a rematch because they were so sure that that wrestler could beat Ric Flair. Ric Flair did never outdrew Hulk Hogan, never at Gates, never at ratings. He didn't. The one thing he's got is the championship, the amount of championship runs, but really his superpower was elevating people that he beat. And Mercedes is great at it. Becky Lynch has done it in her post baby run a couple times. She's done it well. Um, you know, uh, Roman did it okay during the bloodline. I mean, Jay is where he is off of that
Mhm.
story. Um, so Charlotte, it is a complaint against her career that she struggled to do this. She has been a momentum stopper much more than she's been a momentum accelerator.
Mm.
And she has taken Tiffany's 100-mile-per-hour momentum and put it on school zone speeds. I mean,
Yeah.
we are slowing down. And Twitter has been split on whether Charlotte owes it to Tiffany to help bring her along, or it's sink or swim with the Sharks. And if Tiffany can't keep up, well, that's her fault. Charlotte's fans feel that way. I'm going to make an argument here. I would be less worried Charlotte and Tiffany on the mic if I knew that Charlotte was going to sell her ass off during the physicality. The problem is that Charlotte does not always sell her ass off during the physicality. Oh, but Billie, Charlotte always brings her A game to WrestleMania. It's not just WrestleMania. Last week, Charlotte missed her spot on 2 separate moonsaults. She did not take any of the physicality from Tiffany. She didn't. Okay, if Tiffany, I don't think Tiffany missed the mark. Charlotte was on the outside of 2 circles. Clearly, the circle exists for Tiffany to dive into the middle of it, and Charlotte leaned away, not in, right? So if you're going to bury a champion on the mic, you at least owe it to them to sell their offense like crazy. And she needs to be selling all of the offense like crazy in the lead up and into the match. And she has a track record of not always doing that. So that's my biggest concern. If
I
Tiffany
thought,
beats her as a baby face, how good is she going to look? Is
yeah,
Charlotte going to bump her ass off? I don't know that she is.
I just think Tiffany being that mean girl, that nasty girl, is what got her the popularity to begin
Yeah.
with, right? Like that's why people loved her, and they do this and all that. Her being the vanilla baby face just isn't working. I thought the best version of Tiffany, the best version, either it's the version in NXT again with Becky Lynch, or it's the one that cashed in the Money in the Bank. That 4 minutes was the best Tiffany. Like she runs to the ring, she connived the ref, beats him up, hits Naomi with the briefcase. So they're back to Naomi, back to where they can tie them together again.
Yep.
Cost Naomi the title, was cunning. Nia thinks, hey, I got a friend here. Waits for Nia the perfect time, sets Nia, go, hey, go beat her up. Gets on the rope, boom, briefcase. Throws Candice into the pole, then sneaks out of the ring, almost setting Bianca up to do the dirty work for her, and then beats up Bianca, throws her, and then cashes in. That's what I wanted to see out of Tiffany
Outsmarted
Stratton.
everybody.
Like
Yep.
that's the Tiffany I want, and that's the Tiffany that I am a huge fan of, and I'm still a huge fan of her. This is not it. One thing Charlotte said that I don't know how either she has really good creative control or she said it and they didn't like her saying it, or should she said, Tiffany, you'll be lucky to have your job at my age. Vince is no longer in this company because age, women's age, like those are like long. Everybody knew that when a woman gets to a certain point in WWE, they kind of discard them because they don't like the older women for aesthetic reasons. That was the Vince way.
Yep.
Charlotte's basically saying, I'm old and you're not even going to make it to my age. I don't know why they would allow her to say that. I just look, when the USA admin who runs the X account asks the question, who won this? Every saying Charlotte, and one person said Tiffany. And then that person who works for the company that broadcasts this responded, you're the first.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is like now a part of a big troll, but I gotta say, I knew this was going to be the match. I could see it coming a mile away. I've watched wrestling long enough. We talked about it. You said, yeah, that feels right. I don't know what, other than turning Tiffany, doing a double turn at WrestleMania and having it where Tiffany goes crazy, snaps, but not snaps in a cool way where people are cheering her with a kendo stick or something. Like, to the point where people are genuinely concerned that Charlotte his career is over. I don't know what they can do to save this feud, because if like you said, if Tiffany wins at WrestleMania, so what did this accomplish? You
Right.
weakened your 100-mile-an-hour momentum, and then you really have nothing with Charlotte at this point. Like, you've weakened her. Charlotte wins, everybody's just going to be counting down. It's going to be an anger hate watch every week. It's going to be, when is she going to lose? When is she going to lose? When is she going to lose? And it's not going to be the, like, when you finally beat Mercedes, it's like this big moment. It's just going to be get her away from the title, and she's going to get no reaction. And they're gonna probably hot shot the title with her to pad her stats. I don't know. I don't know. I other than turning Tiffany super heel, I don't know how I can get back into this feud. I hope
Yeah,
the match delivers, but I don't even have faith there either.
I don't know what the dynamic is. I mean, the dynamic that it could deliver would be Tiffany whipping her ass. And if you
Hmm.
don't turn Tiffany heel and Tiffany just whips her ass, it's only going to work if Charlotte beating and bumps her ass off like crazy. And then the WrestleMania crowd may be like, man, she's tormented this poor girl for 2 months. And we're enjoying watching Charlotte get her ass kicked. But when was the last time Charlotte worked a match like that? I'm going to go ahead and say very controversial. We, in fact, started a show a month or two ago saying this. You people always say this happens and it rarely happens. The word burial. Everything's a burial. Everything's a burial. Most things are not a burial. If Charlotte beats Tiffany and this is the feud, that is a burial of Tiffany. It will be
It
very
is.
difficult. Tiffany as a baby face will cease to exist over. It just will not, just dead, buried.
There's no way that they hear Tiffany's popularity and they hear the fans really like her and the online kind of buzz she has, and the Tiffy time and the pop she got at Money in the Bank and the when she won and cashed in. And there's no way that this company, who, because of crowd reaction to most of the real hardcore wrestling community, including yourself, by the way,
Mhm.
has to suffer through a Jey Uso title win, because that's what's coming at WrestleMania, right? Like, Jey Uso is going to win the title. And every hardcore wrestling fan, like people who love what happens in the ring as much as the presentation, they're cringing because Gunther is phenomenal and he
Right.
is a great wrestler. And look, I think Jey Uso is charismatic. He has the entrance, he has aura, all of the words the kids use. But my goodness, I don't think I've ever liked a Jey Uso singles match. I think even the match with Roman Reigns at SummerSlam I thought was okay. So my point here is, a company that capitalizes on popularity and crowd noise and reactions, and they go with, like, this is the version of WWE that gives the crowd what they actually want. EO winning the title, that can only be seen as we are pleasing the crowd. I don't know how you can do anything other than Tiffany wins and wins strong,
Yeah.
because anything other than that is a burial. So speaking of the women at WrestleMania, while Tiffany and Charlotte have underwhelmed at every single turn, the other title match seems to have one question left attached to it. Will it main event?
Yep.
Will Io Sky, the champion, versus Bianca Belair, as of today, the only challenger, and Rhea Ripley, who has signed a non-legal document contract, but we assume it's going to be a three-way. That's why you haven't seen a graphic for this match yet.
Right.
Should that main event? So let me ask you the question. Should it main event night one? Because we know it's main
Yes.
event in night two. Okay.
Yes, it should main event night one. Um, Triple H backed himself into a corner with this about 3 weeks ago, and he said the best angle should main event. No one should be for penciled in just because they won Royal Rumble or anything like that. Rhea, Io, and Bianca continue to be significantly hotter than the other match that has a chance to main event. I'm gonna go ahead and say this. We'll get this out of the way. We'll hurt a couple feelings. Charlotte and Tiffany are not main eventing.
No.
It's not happening. Someone said, "Well, this is the second time Charlotte's won the Royal Rumble and she won't main event." It's not. It's not happening. I'm sorry. It's not happening. It's just not. If they get some momentum going in, maybe they'll open and get to start the show hot. But they have a lot of work to do for that. Even the other match that can main event would be Roman, Seth, CM Punk.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that the first segment of Roman Punk Seth was a gigantic hit. When Roman came back for the cage match, it was a home run. Segment 2 was not that great. It wasn't very good. The internet didn't love it. The crowd actually lost some steam on it. They just all kept pointing at the Mania sign. It was actually pretty. In a bad SmackDown episode, it was bad.
It was a bad episode.
It was a bad episode of SmackDown. So, Io and Rhea, probably the three most dated and over women in WWE. Frankly, Liv is right there because Liv has been incredible, and the crowd, has a lot of respect for Liv, whether she's heel or face. They have the respect to react to Liv the way that she needs them to. If she needs them to boo, they boo. If they want to cheer her, sometimes they do that as well. Liv is very over, but that's the four. And I think Naomi and Jade are going to be right there with their feud. But unless Triple H slows down their story the way he did Bailey and Io, and I'm just going to call it because he did that to them. He slowed down their story for the men. CM Punk has a reputation for being a great advocate for women's wrestling and for women in general. He elevates when he talks about wrestling, he talks very highly of the women. CM Punk also very famously wants to main event WrestleMania. So there's a little bit of a crossroads for him. Does he want a main event as part of a three-way, or would he rather have a one-on-one match? Would he politic to main event over a more deserving match with a title included, whereas this one does not? I don't know. I don't know the man that well. The wild card in this is Roman Reigns. If Roman Reigns, if it's that important to him to main event and he's angling for it, he could get his way. I'm not saying I have inside information that he's doing that. I'm just saying he's Roman Reigns. That would be the one I'd be worried about if Roman says, no, I'm wrestling Seth and CM Punk. I'm a main event. That could be difficult to overcome. The women deserve the main event. They're the better story. They're the realer story, right? There's a real reason these three women are wrestling, are fighting.
Mm-hmm.
They're fighting over the championship, which is what it should be about. All Io Sky, Ripley, and Bianca Belair are in their prime.
Mm-hmm.
The match is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Rhea and Io have had a great match. Io and Bianca have had several great matches. Bianca and Rhea have mostly been kept apart, but the minute or two or however long actually was a couple minutes that they wrestled at the Royal Rumble that Bianca won was electric.
Yeah. In front of nobody.
In front of nobody was electric. They don't usually have the final two wrestle that long at Royal Rumble, but they let those two go and struggle, and it was electric. So it's got a main event. And if we got a hashtag for it, I'm in. Let's hashtag for it.
You know what? You actually just solved, you gave me the idea to solve everybody's problem, which is this match will main event.
Okay.
And it actually is part of the story for Roman, Seth, and Punk. CM Punk wants to main event WrestleMania, right? Everybody
Yeah.
knows that's a CM Punk dream.
Right.
So you have a story of him chasing the main event. He didn't win the Royal Rumble. So what is his claim to main event? Everybody's going to say the Paul Heyman favor.
Right.
Okay. What if, staying within character, Roman Reigns cuts this promo? But you know what? I'm Roman Reigns. I am the main event. I main event every WrestleMania. But I hate you, CM Punk, so much that
Wait,
I have went to the office because I'm Roman Reigns and I have the juice. And you're not getting the main event
we're gonna open
because
WrestleMania.
we're going to open WrestleMania because that's what you deserve. Because I can main event if I want to, but I hate you so much that I will never let you main event as long as I'm in this company.
And then next year they one-on-one main event.
Right. And then it's either those two or,
Yeah,
whatever you want to do with Punk. But my point is, this is part of that story.
that's a
Roman
great story.
Reigns saying, hey, I'm not going to let you main event because I call the shots. This is my company and I dictate who main events. And here's how he can do it for Seth. Hey, Seth, the bigger star in your house always brags about how she was the first quote unquote main event. Well, guess what? I am so in control that because of me, Bianca is going to be a two-time main eventer. So now your wife's claim to fame isn't even a big deal anymore. It's done because I'm Roman Reigns and I am the boss and I dictate. So you literally in the story have the women main event as part of the story. Literally, it's like Roman Reigns is the reason the women main event in the story. And it adds to him being beloved because he is a baby face
You have
a
to
little
tweak it a
bit.
little bit though, because you can't make it seem like the women don't
Yeah, yeah,
deserve it
the women
either.
don't deserve it. But what I'm saying
You'd
is
have
like,
to say something along the lines of, if you want to keep him babyface, everything you said,
yeah,
and he says something along the lines of, "I am the main event, but wrestling you two jokers,
yeah. Like,
I'd rather sit down and pop open a beer and watch Rhea, Bianca, and Io kill it."
yeah, what if he said, when I think of wrestling stars, I think of Roman Reigns, I think of Rhea Ripley, I think of Bianca Belair. All three of us were on the cover of the video game. Have you ever been
Yeah,
on the cover, Seth? Like, have you ever been on the cover? You're not good enough. And so I want to beat you guys quick because I'm going to make quick work of you. And then I want to watch the real superstars because you guys aren't on my level. And he can also say, Seth, the only reason you ever main evented ever is because of me. Because the only time you've ever been in the main event is because of me.
yeah,
And Punk, because of me, you're not going to main event. And if you tell that story, now you've solved everybody's problem.
I love it.
Because,
They should hire you for that writing position.
right, that to me is how you tell the story where everybody wins. Because I don't see your point. Now let's get back to reality. If Roman Reigns just goes into the office, and I don't think he'd ever do this, I hope he wouldn't do this, and says, look, I'm Roman Reigns, I want a main event. Then he's going to main event, and it's nothing Rhea or Bianca or Io can do, and there's no hashtag that can save us because we know Roman Reigns is not Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre.
Right.
Neither is CM Punk and neither is Seth Rollins. All three of those individuals have enough juice and enough cachet that if they really put their foot down and say we should main event, then they're going to main event. But I think Triple H himself sets a very bad precedent here. And I think Triple H goes against his own booking principles. I don't think a main event match shouldn't have, like, unless it's Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, or unless the Undertaker is involved when it comes to WrestleMania. I don't think a non-title match should main event WrestleMania. And I think a three-way match that has no title implications. Like, it's not like the winner of this gets added to Cena, Cody. Then at that point, okay, now you have something.
Like they did with The Rock last year,
Like
right? They
like they
had
did with
the
The Rock. This is just a blood feud. Let it go on. To me, the perfect way to do this, Jey Uso and Gunther open night one. Because let's be honest here, Jey Uso should open WrestleMania. His entrance in the yeeting, like they can kill 25 minutes with that. He's going to win the title. Let the crowd start off happy. Night one closing should be Io, Bianca, Rhea, who to this point, I don't know who's going to win. I feel like Io could retain unless they want to make Bianca streak something, then Bianca wins. I don't see a path of Rhea Ripley winning this WrestleMania. I just don't. Because I think her story is redemption. Night two, you have Punk, Rollins, Reigns open. You have Cena, Cody close. And I think Roman Reigns appears in the main event to help Cody either try to keep the title, or after Cody loses the title, Roman comes out and him and Rock set up their feud next year. That's the easiest way to make everybody happy here. I don't see the clamoring for Reigns, Punk, Rollins to main event other than hardcore either anti-women's wrestling fans or, the Punk has the main event because he's CM Punk. But I got to be honest here. Punk came back to WWE because he had no options. And yeah, he's done great business for WWE. But I feel like there's a bigger story for him to main event. Like, I feel like he should have
yeah.
to earn it. And I think
It's
he
not like
would
he's
want
on
it
his
that way.
retirement tour.
And
Yeah,
he would,
he's not
I
on
think
his
he wants
retirement
that.
tour.
Like, I think he
Yeah.
wants to win the Royal Rumble. And I think he should win the Royal Rumble next year. And maybe him versus Cody is the match, or him versus Cena. Like, if Cena was wrestling till next WrestleMania, I would say have Cena win the title and have his last match be next WrestleMania versus CM Punk. So, okay, that's kind of where I feel like we needed to cover our bases this week.
Yeah. I think next week we'll talk about Liv Morgan.
Yep.
Talk about who, not in a negative way, but you start to look and worry about who might miss the Mania card. An ex-user put out a great WrestleMania card that I'm like, sign me up. But the reality is it had 7 women's matches on it to get everyone that y'all who listen to this podcast care about. Pretty much the only way that all of them got on the card without it being a big multi-women tag match was this 7-match card. It had like Bailey and Roxanne. It had both women's title, US and Intercontinental being defended. So I don't know how realistic that is, but we'll talk about the Mania card a little bit more next week. Hopefully we learn a little bit more
Yep.
about what maybe Liv and Raquel, who they might be going against. The one thing we talked about Toni Storm, but we kind of failed to mention, but let's throw some props out real quick. Not only did Mercedes and Billie have a great match on Dynamite, but there were 2 women's matches, Megan Bayne and Chris Statlander. Props to Toni, 2 matches, and Megan Bayne and Chris Statlander main evented with Toni on commentary, so that was a great step forward. And guess what? The ratings were up, so keep it going, Tony
Yes.
Khan. We want more women's wrestling on Dynamite, please, and thank you.
Last thing before we sign off, I have a strong idea that the SmackDown before WrestleMania will have both women's mid-card titles defended. I think you'll get Lyra's defense on that show. I think you'll get Zelina and Chelsea on that show. I just don't see a path to 7 women's matches at WrestleMania. And I would love to have Roxanne and Bailey on the WrestleMania card. I just don't see how they get there because
they're not working on it at all right now.
Like, I mean, Bailey looks like she's chasing the IC title, right? Like Bailey, Lyra's like, after I beat her, I want to face you. It feels like that's going to be the Mania program. Maybe Roxanne gets a partner. Maybe Roxanne gets Cora Jade. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, until next week, we look forward to talking to you guys. Thank you so much for all your support.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.